Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Tactical Harmony. And I am pumped for today's episode because we are bringing on a guest that I have massive respect for. I've had the honor and privilege to work with this individual over the past year, and we have some really exciting stuff on deck for 2026 that I am sure he will dive into. So with that, allow me to introduce David Kitchen. David Coach Kitch is the founder of Edge Leadership Academy, a top 20 leadership development company and a mental performance coach to elite performers. A former Division I football coach turned entrepreneur, he has spent over a decade helping high performers build elite culture, leadership, and mindset, both in the locker room and the boardroom. He holds a master's in sports psychology and is completing his PhD in psychology, blending academic depth with real-world grit. He is the author of 3 books, including an international bestseller, and he is the host of the Built Not Born podcast, ranked in the top 5% globally. And fun fact, that is where we met on his podcast. As an award-winning speaker, consultant, and trusted coach to over 100 CEOs, coaches, and competitors, Coach Kitch brings the fire, the frameworks, and the truth high performers need to win in business, athletics, and life. Kitch, my brother, welcome to the Tactical Harmony Show.
Fitz, I'm so glad we get a chance to do this. I love chopping it up with you. And first off, that introduction was awesome. So thank you. And yeah, just fired up to be here. I'm excited we get a chance to do this right before the holidays and talk some shop and have some fun.
Well, let's dive right in. Kitch, I know so much about you because you are my friend, fellow business partner, and I would love for you to share with our audience a little bit about your journey, professionally and personally. I love how success isn't linear. So tell me your journey and how you got to be the amazing, badass individual that you are today.
Man, twists and turns from the beginning. Kind of to give you the Reader's Digest version, I tell people the best gift I was ever given is that I was born to a single parent. I was born single mom. She raised 2 kids on her own, working 3 jobs, went to school, went to college at 42 years old and graduated with a nursing degree. I mean, watched her, do the thing. And so that's where my story started. I saw a lot at a young age, had a stepfather who was in and out of the picture, addiction, poverty, the whole deal. And, for a lot of people, they would say, oh man, I went through these things. And so this is the way my life is going to go. Right. Or these are the things. And for me, it kind of became this, I've seen what I don't want. So now let me go on a trajectory of what I do want. And I was very, very fortunate to be supported by, a great group of coaches, a great group of friends, and a phenomenal family backbone with my mom and my grandmother that set me on the right path and got me the opportunity to play college football. That kind of comes full circle. The reason I tell you that, ended up losing my scholarship after I got hurt and, trying to figure it out and what's coming next. And I got into IT sales, right? And this is kind of the backbone of when I say built, not born, when I talk about living in the arena. I graduated college and got into IT sales, and it was a great time to be in that because it was 2010 or 2014, excuse me. The cloud solutions had just hit the market. And so we were selling IT cloud solutions to medium-sized businesses in Pennsylvania. And so we're killing it. We're making cash hand over fist. But the problem was I was wearing a shirt and tie every day, and I was miserable. And I was making this money, and I'm looking around, and I'm like, man, this is not success. This is not what I want. And so I got a phone call from a former coach of mine that said, hey, I took over this program. Would you like to come help coach? And I said, yeah, you know what? I'll come do that on the side while I'm still working this sales job. That turned into me realizing how much impact you can have as a coach and falling back in love with the process, right? And so within a couple months, I sat at my kitchen table and I wrote handwritten letters to every Division I school on the East Coast. And I said, I'll quit my job and come work for you for free if you give me an opportunity to come coach. And was very fortunate to get an opportunity, packed the Jeep, moved to Pittsburgh, it was an old high school that they converted into 1-bedroom apartments. And they only took cash for rent. And it was that kind of neighborhood. And I moved in there, and that sent me on a 10-year career in college coaching, in college strength and conditioning and athletics, where I got the opportunity to work at the highest level. I went from an unpaid intern where I was 2 years older than everybody else, but working for free and cleaning protein shakes and, doing the whole thing. And flash forward a couple of years, I'm the youngest head strength coach in the country. And then all of a sudden, I'm, going out and we're playing Ohio State opening weekend in the Horseshoe, and then we're on a plane to LA. We're playing USC in the Coliseum. And so I got to do the thing, but along that journey, I got to see leadership and I got to see culture and I got to see performance at a really high level, because not only are those coaches and those players and those athletic administrators and everybody in there, not only are they elite at their job, they're elite in business. Like, that's a multi-billion-dollar business. And so you see leadership from a lot of different angles and performance from a lot of different angles. And that was what launched me into Edge Leadership Academy. The pandemic hit. I was coaching at the time. I actually made the transition to men's basketball. And so I was coaching men's basketball, Division I level. And we had just made the tournament and the pandemic hit. So the tournament got shut down. And I sat down and I was just like, man, I think I'm made for more. That little voice that you and I joke about and talk about, I think I'm made for more. And so I walked away and emptied the 401k and decided I was going to teach leadership to athletics teams and to businesses. And I built Edge Leadership Academy. And within a couple of years, we were able to reach the top 20 in the country in leadership development and coaching companies. And from there, I've been able to diversify and, get into some other ventures and do some other things, from media company to some nonprofits. I opened a gym along the way. And so now I do a little bit of everything. I tell people it has to do with leadership, it has to do with culture, or it has to do with performance. We have our hand in it in one way or another. So that's a long-winded answer to tell you that I've taken the zigs, the zags, the long way to get here, where I get to spend every single day talking about what it means to live in the arena and chase the best version of you, not for you, but for the people around you.
Wow, that's incredible. Yeah, zigs and zags, ups and downs, all of the things, right? And something that I always say to my teams and to my colleagues is success without fulfillment is one of the greatest tragedies. On paper, you can have the best job, you can have an elite job, you can look a lot of things on Instagram or LinkedIn or to those around you. But if you are not happy, if you are not filled with joy and peace and whatever is your why or whatever your values are, if you are not aligned with those and if you are not living those, to me, that is a tragedy. And so, Kitch, I applaud you that you had that fortitude and perseverance to see beyond what was your current picture. So in a situation and in an upbringing, and I had a similar upbringing as you, where let's just say the odds are against you. How did you find that grit and resilience or spirit to be able to see past that and to be like, nope, I'm not going to accept this. I know I'm meant for more and I'm going to keep my foot on the gas. How did you do that?
You know what? I have to give my mom her flowers again. I know I keep going back to Mama Bear, but like, I just watched it. I watched somebody that every single day the world was telling her, quit. You're not going to do it. You're not going to make it. Right. And it was just like, she just didn't stop. That was the thing. Like, I saw her come home tired from her first job, go to her second job, come home with styrofoam containers for us to eat, and then she would go to school and work at night and work in the library, where she would, drive 2 hours because we didn't have a computer. So she would have to drive to campus to use the computers. And like, I just saw somebody that just kept showing up. And then slowly over time, I watched her life improve. And I was like, oh, so if I just keep showing up, eventually I'm going to start putting points on the board here. Like, I'm going to start to do things differently. Now, obviously, I was able to accelerate that by making different decisions earlier in life, had some better circumstances. I had her wisdom to lean on, those types of things. But for me, that was the thing. The second piece for me was finding what I call my superpower, which is, the fact that I have a very high pain tolerance. And when I say pain tolerance, I mean emotional pain, physical pain, discomfort of cognitive dissonance, like sitting between who you are and who you want to be. And I realized that, okay, if I can sit and tolerate this, then I can tolerate other things that take a long time to happen. And so that means that I can start to empty my tank in process-driven things rather than outcome-driven things, because I don't need the gratification right now, right? Like, one of the reasons that I was able to play college football was because of my physical strength. It wasn't my athleticism. I'm not inherently more athletic than other people. I was a workhorse in the weight room. Most high school kids don't want to be a workhorse in the weight room because it's not right now. The only way to get strong is to do the reps and do it over and over and over and over. And so I just started to build this mentality of like, if I can just outwork other people and I can just keep showing up, eventually people will start to fade. And then the ones that are left, it becomes down to pain tolerance. And I'm going to win that every day of the week. Right. And so even now as a business owner, when I step into those types of arenas and those types of situations, when I look at myself versus other businesses, they may have flashy MBAs and corporate backgrounds and these things. But here's the deal. I guarantee you won't get up at 2 a.m. You won't do it. Like if it comes down to how many days in a row do we have to get up early and go to bed late, I'm going to beat you. And so that confidence, and it's not arrogance, it's something that was instilled and built over years and years and years. That's really, I think, what has allowed me to take the steps that I've taken and have the confidence to make those jumps, because it's like, I know that this isn't going to happen overnight, but I can take the jump and I can sit in the discomfort long enough to make it happen over time.
I absolutely love that. I'm writing down a few things because I want to pull the thread.
Please.
Like you just unpacked, I don't even know how many golden nuggets, but a couple of things. One is I love when you said, I'm going to give my mama her flowers. I think that shows your heart. And again, I'm privileged because I know you were a friend to me. You have that level of access and that is your heart. And so for anyone that is listening or watching this, you are seeing raw, authentic Kitch because there's no other version. And so to give Mama Kitch her flowers, I just think that's beautiful that we can highlight her in this venue. And I too, humble beginnings in Ohio. My first memories were in a trailer park, and my parents worked their asses off at a factory where they stayed for over 40 years to put food on my table. And I am so eternally grateful. And it also showed me the importance and value of hard work, like you saw with your mama, no matter what she was up against. 42 years old, going to school, doing whatever she could to provide for your future, for her future, for your collective future. That is the good stuff in life. So I really wanted to hold space for that. And I appreciate you showing that.
Of course.
One other thing, Kitch, that you said, and if you were listening right now, I want you to lean in, is delayed gratification. Delayed gratification is something that I think a lot of people struggle with, especially in today's society and culture, where I want something, I want it yesterday, I want it now, and if I don't get it, I'm going to throw the towel in and I'm going to quit. And when you do that, you secure your future. And I always tell people, successful people don't have some secret code. They don't have some secret playbook that you don't have. They just don't quit. No matter what, no matter how many times they fail, they simply do not quit. They figure it out. They try something else. They iterate. They will not quit. And so I really love that you called that out, Kitch, because that is a big, big blocker for a lot of people out there.
Yeah, I think to piggyback off of it for a second, kind of even like double click down a little bit of like, how do we, it's easy for us to say like, well, they don't quit, right? Well, what does that look like? What does that not quitting look like? And so this is something I've been chewing on a lot lately of like, what is that thing that allows high performers to detach emotionally from that result and zoom out for a second and say, okay, here are the steps along the way? Because that's really where people get stuck, right? They try and eat the elephant all at once. And then when they can't, it's demoralizing. And so one of the things I think first and foremost is the proper appraisal of the issue, right? So what's keeping me from having this thing, right? So say you want to write, we'll just use a book, for example. Say you want to write a book and you want to be a best-selling author, right? Well, the first thing that you have to do is take a step back and look at where you're at right now. And then you have to ask yourself, along this journey to become a best-selling author, what needs to increase? Because it's always an increase. Something needs to be turned up. Is it a capacity issue? Do I have the capacity to write this book? Do I have the capability or the hard skills to be able to do this? And then it's a willingness thing. So capacity, capability, or willingness. It's always one of those three, right? And if it's capacity, well, then that means that your priorities are in order, right? It means that somewhere you have to create the container for you to be able to pour yourself into this endeavor. If it's a capability thing, that's an upskill issue. So how do I find the people, places, lessons, books, podcasts, whatever resources to help me upskill? If it's a willingness thing, then you either got to let go of the desire, you either have to release the desire or release the habits that are keeping you where you're at. It's one of the two, right? You can't have both. And so you have to either find peace in not having the thing or find peace in the process of trying to attain the thing. And I think all high performers, to your point about delayed gratitude, they're really good at being able to look at it and say, okay, is it a capability? Is it a capacity? Is it a willingness issue? And then they go full steam ahead and they figure out which one of those things it is. And then they attack.
Absolutely. Yeah. Attack is probably the best word. It's like all gas, no brake. And, so many people out there, they just romanticize that outcome and they dream about it, but then they dread the execution and they don't want to do the work and experience the pain or the short-term sacrifice, or maybe even a long-term sacrifice in order to achieve that thing. So
Right.
it's either not that important to you or your priorities are jacked. And that framework that you shared, Kitch, is so valuable. And I could not agree more. So I have a couple questions for you here, and I'm so excited to hear how you're going to respond. My first question is, what is a non-negotiable habit, or maybe it's a practice that you do on the daily or weekly, or maybe it's monthly, that keeps you operating at such a high level of performance?
Meditation, hands down. That's the number one thing that it just, when I found it at a time in my life where it's so interesting to say this because it doesn't make sense at the time in life that I found it. I found it in a time in life when I was running from silence and stillness because I didn't like my own thoughts. I didn't like sitting in stillness. I didn't like the feeling. I was shaming and guilting myself for slowing down. And so I kept myself so busy that I wouldn't have to deal with things. And ironically, the thing that helped me better build my capacity, right, was meditation, which is sitting in stillness and sitting in silence and getting comfortable and then learning to detach, right? So I'm very, very proud to say it's probably the most important habit in my life. I'm closing in on 2,000 days straight. It's a non-negotiable for me. Like people say I don't have time to meditate. I say I don't have time not to, because if I can't put my emotional armor on, I can't go be selfless in service of others. I can't do it because I know me. I get too fixated on my own stuff. I get caught up in my head. And then all of a sudden my speed of execution drops. My decision making gets skewed, right? My ability to build connection and relationship gets skewed because I'm in focused versus being other focused. So all of those things get affected when I don't spend time with me, clearing the space in my head and allowing myself to minimize some of the one or at least a few of those million tabs that we all have open in our heads at all times, especially high performers, especially people that are going after big things in life. There is a constant pressure and stress that comes along with it. And so you have to find ways to find peace within it. It's like the hurricane, right? You have to be able to sit at the eye of the hurricane. One of my favorite scenes, and I know this is a long-winded answer, but I'll bring it full circle here. One of my favorite scenes in television ever was, I don't know if you've ever seen the show The Bear. So it's about a Michelin star chef, and was the youngest ever to win a Michelin star, and he was basically taking the world by storm, right? And he's telling this story, and he said, one night the kitchen caught on fire in the restaurant that I was working on. We had just won our first Michelin star. We were working on our second, and the kitchen caught on fire. And he said, and there was a moment where I stood there and I looked at the flames and I thought to myself, if I do nothing and I just let this burn, all my anxiety goes with it. All the pressure goes with it. And then I came back to reality and I put the fire out and I went back to work. And I think that that's for high performers. Like I get chills telling that story because for high performers, that's true. We have those moments, right? There are moments where I sit down and I go, man, if I just shut the business down and just stopped, all of this pressure would be off of my shoulders, right? But you can't live there. And that's the emotional regulation piece that meditation gives you. It allows you to see that thought and then let it go past and get back to what's important.
Wow, I have chills. Yes, I absolutely love that. And it is probably of no surprise to you and certainly my audience that my number one thing, and if I were asked this question too, my answer would be meditation. Like you said, Kitch, like for high performers in particular, I mean, this benefits everybody, but for high performers in particular, or for those that are always in their head, and I'm a very introverted person, so I'm always in my head, I'm always thinking, and it's hard for me to shut off those engines. But you have to. I mean, if you look at the analogy of a car, like you have to shut the engine off. You're going to run out of gas. And so I was very blessed, very, very blessed. And we're going to have to do another podcast episode where you and I are just talking about meditation. But
Please.
I want to insert this here because I think it's important. I just went to a 7-day retreat with Dr. Joe Dispenza, whom I study meditation under. And all my credit, all my success, all of that, I want to make sure is attributed to him, Dr. Joe Dispenza. And so, you know, in his teachings, overcoming the analytical mind, overcoming yourself, taming the animal, taming the body so you have the sharpest mind. I am so eternally grateful for that. And just the change in your biochemistry, hormonally, energetically, biologically, you are a different person when you go into the operating system. You make some different moves and different shifts, and you keep at it. Again, it's not something that you do once in a blue moon. You keep at it. You are going to be a different person. And the level of clarity you have it's otherworldly. And so I love that. Thank you for sharing that. So, okay, switching gears. What in your experience separates good leaders from great leaders?
Oh man, I love this question. The first thing is their character. First thing, it is. We used to say in athletics, you can't out train a bad diet, right? And in leadership, the same thing is true. You can't outrun bad character. Doesn't matter how many titles you have. It doesn't matter what your numbers are. It doesn't matter. At some point, it is going to show up, and it's going to show up on the biggest stage, in the biggest moment, and you're going to get revealed. And so the number one thing is character. To me, it's your ability to be who you say you are and show up as that person consistently, right? And be able to be committed to what you say is important and be able to communicate that with people and be able to be creative in your approach of using the people on your team, supporting them, problem solving, all those things. And also your ability just at the end of the day to show up and just be consistent, right? Be the constant, not the variable in your people's lives. And if you don't know who you are, then every time the wind blows, you are all those other things I just mentioned get swayed. And then your execution levels change, your priorities change, the way that you communicate changes, your ability to problem solve change. All those things are a result of your character. It all stems from that middle piece. So when we draw it out as a diagram, I put character in the middle, and then there's the 4 other C's around it. So character's in the middle, then that leads to your ability to be consistent, which leads to your ability to commit, which leads to your ability to be creative in the way that you problem solve and the way that you manage your talent, which leads to your ability to communicate effectively and efficiently at a really, really high level. So if we have leaders out there that are listening and trying to figure out, what is the thing for me that I can get my highest ROI on, it's always your character, right? And when I say character, a lot of times people are like, well, that's kind of a fuzzy word, right? Like, what does that actually mean? To me, I look at it from how it shows up in your habits, right? Work related and other. Because at the end of the day, it's very hard to serve 2 masters, right? So who you are needs to be who you are, no matter what the arena is. How does it show up in your social interactions, both with people in your social circle and also with people that are outside your social circle? So how do you treat, Susie in compliance that's in a different sector than you? How do you treat Mike, the Uber driver? How do you treat, all those things are a reflection of your character that ultimately are a reflection of your leadership ability, right? Those things matter. It shows up in your ability to emotionally regulate, which is, again, one of the most underrated skills that you can work on. And, another little plug for meditation here. You want to learn to emotionally regulate better, learn to sit with your feelings, right? And so it shows up in your ability to emotionally regulate. How do you deal with failure? How do you deal with success? How do you deal with adversity? Right. And then it also shows up just in your overall mindset. Like, what's your approach to things? Are you somebody, and I love people that lean yes. Like, that's always my thing is, can you lean yes? What I mean by that is, from a growth mindset standpoint, can you maintain that growth mindset in all arenas? Like, can you say that despite this new information or this problem that is now challenging my preconception that I had on something, or my ego, or some old identity that I'm attached to? Can I still take this information in, synthesize it, and make the best possible decision for the organization, despite what it may reflect on me? Maybe that's you admitting that you are wrong. Maybe it's admitting for help. Maybe it's restructuring some things. Maybe it's you taking the lead on something. Whatever the thing is, can you take in that new information and actually synthesize it? I think there's a lot of leaders out there right now that are collectors, where they collect information. They collect CEUs. They collect LinkedIn learning badges. They collect seminars. They collect all these things, but they don't ever do anything with it. It doesn't actually change anything. So you're not actually growth mindseted, right? You're just taking in information to take in information. I'm more interested in the person that takes in a piece of information and immediately puts it into action in one way or another. It doesn't have to be perfect, but can you put it into action in one way or another, right? So again, long-winded answer to get us to, characters is, to me, the thing that separates, and then it's those other 4 C's.
Absolutely. And oh gosh, so much to unpack. Kitch, you're coming.
I'm trying to keep it quick for you. I'm trying to just hammer it.
Love. This is what we do. We joked, guys, and when we were chatting before we jumped on, before we hit the record button, we're like, okay, we could do so many episodes, and I already know I'm going to have Kitch back on the show. Edge Leadership Academy, you talked about this framework and you talk about the C's and things like that. Could you walk us through maybe a little bit that you have on deck for Edge Leadership Academy in 2026?
Yeah, absolutely. So Edge is undergoing an evolution right now, and it's the thing for me that I feel has been the missing piece of our jet fuel to take us to that next level and to make the most impact possible. And lasting impact. So for a long time, people knew us as coming in, rocking some workshops, rocking some keynote addresses, maybe a little bit of one-on-one coaching on the side. But those are splash events, right? Those are big events. I am obsessed with the follow through. I'm obsessed with the detail, right? Because again, information without change is just information. It's just data at that point. So to me, I'm like, how do we get lasting behavior change? Well, the way that we do that is we systematize leadership. And so the way that we've done that is we've actually put our minds together, and Miss Rebecca Fitzsimmons is a big part of this. We also have another partner in Jeff Emanuel, as well as the internal partners we have with Edge. And we put our minds together and we said, how do we build an 8-module course that will actually impact the way that leaders lead? And so we took that a step forward. And so we don't want it to be fluff. We don't want it to be a at your own pace, something that you have on in the background type deal. And so we built, arguably, I would say, I'll put it up against any other leadership certification that is out there. And it's called the Built to Lead certification. It is built around our 5 C's. And then what we did is we leaned on Fitz and her team at Tactical Harmony. We leaned on Jeff and his team at Talent to Lead. And we brought in all of those modules, all of those exercises, all of those reflection and discussion prompts and activities, and we put it all into one. And so we have now this certification that's rolling out in 2026 called the Built to Lead certification. It's 8 modules. It's 24 hours of instruction and discussion. It's small cohorts. And it is, in my opinion, if you're looking for an opportunity to 1, step up your own leadership, or 2, build a culture of leaders who lead, this is the way to do it. Everybody is getting the same playbook. It is the full operating system of everything that we have taught. And in your case, in the military, in my case, in athletics and business, in Jeff's case, in business and in the community. And we've taken it all and put it together. And we're like, okay, if we were going to build a leader, if we were going to build a Frankenstein, leader with all the best qualities, here's how we would do it. So super, super excited for that. It's a complete ecosystem that people can walk into and feel supported and know that they are now, one, training with the best, but also that they're going to be supported throughout their entire leadership journey.
It's incredible. And being a part of it is absolutely amazing. But beyond that, the diversity in leadership and experience is what sets this apart. Mm-hmm. And y'all know my experience in CIS and being a federal agent for almost 15 years. And years in the private sector, and then all of the leadership, mindset, performance that goes into being an entrepreneur and a business owner here in Tactical Harmony. And then Kitch's experience and everything that we've talked about in the athletic world and Jeff's experience in the corporate world and healthcare. And it's absolutely incredible to me to be alongside these great minds who lean in, who say what they mean, they get after it. And it's all about leadership and impact and service and making you a better leader tomorrow than you are today. This is where the rubber meets the road. This is the good stuff. It's the nuts and bolts. This is the stuff that's going to get you from where you are to where you want to go a whole hell of a lot faster. So thank you, Kitch, for sharing that. Really, really exciting things on deck for 2026. So I'm absolutely jazzed. We have a few minutes left. And so with that, I have two more questions for you. So one question is, if you were to give some advice lovingly to your younger self, maybe your 25-year-old self, or maybe someone that's, just starting off their career, or maybe someone that's, maybe mid in their career, what would you tell him or her?
Get clear on what your definition of success is. Like, make sure you want the prize before you start playing the game. Because I think a lot of us, we get caught up in games that we don't want to win the prizes that are up, and we need to make sure that, whatever we're chasing after is the thing that we actually want. Right. And so whether that is, financial stability and financial freedom, whether it's fame and fortune, and there's nothing wrong with that. I don't think there's anything wrong with any goal. Let me be clear about that. You define what that is for you, but make sure that what comes with it is what you want. Right. And so the perfect example, when you said 25, my mind started going, right. When I first started the business, and my brother had been diagnosed with cancer. Right. And so he was my younger brother. He's 27 years old at the time. And he was going through chemo. And I had just started my business. I was maybe 2 years into it at that point. And the fact that I was able to be by his bedside every single day working on my business reaffirmed everything that I thought about being an entrepreneur. It was like, the money is a scoreboard. This is what matters. What matters is the fact that I didn't have to type an email to anybody and say, can I be out of the office for this extremely important event for this time that I may never get back with my brother? I didn't have to ask permission. I just went and did it. And I was still able to build a business. I was able to cancel our speaking tour and tell my team, get me on every single podcast you can so that I can work from home. I'm not going on the road until he rings that bell, right? And to be able to do that. So again, I think it's, what's the advice? The advice is win games where the prizes matter. Don't win games where the prizes don't matter. There's a lot of people that are so worried about being employee of the week, and you wouldn't be friend or father or son or brother or sister of the hour, like of the month, of the year, of anything. You're not even in the running, right? So work harder on your obituary than you are on your resume, and make sure you're playing games that matter.
Wow. Yeah, it's so impactful, so powerful. And, I recently just did a podcast on this where there was a study where they interviewed people at the end of their lives, and so many amazing inspirational bits of wisdom that came out of that. But one thing that has always resonated with me is, no one's thinking, I wish I would have worked harder. I wish I would have spent more time at work and away from my family. And I'm not saying to not work hard. I'm not saying that you can't, that you're not going to be able to achieve success without that work. But what I am saying is make it count. And like you said, where the prizes count. And what are you doing it for? What are you doing it for? You're punching in, you're punching out. Like, what are you doing it for? If you want something else, that dream it's going to haunt you until you pursue it, until you get after it. And so being aligned with your values is everything.
Absolutely.
You said so many things. I think my favorite thing that you said is you cannot outrun bad character. I think that's probably one of my favorite things that you said today. But my last question for you, Kitch, is if you could leave our audience with one thing, and they only listen to this one clip or one message, what would that one thing be?
You're one decision away from an entirely different life. You're one decision. It's not as far as you think it is. I've pivoted my life so many times based on one decision. And one of the most powerful phrases that you can learn to tell yourself is, I do it anyways. I do it when I'm scared. I do it when I'm terrified. I do it when I don't know the outcome. I do it when I'm not sure. I do it anyways. right? I think that if I could leave people with that, there's so many people out there that are living their life and reading it like a story rather than writing it. And I feel for them, right? And it's not, I'm not blaming, I'm not shaming, and none of those things. I'm offering a hand. I'm saying there are people like Rebecca and I that are out here that will help you get into the stand or get into the arena of life and get out of the stands, right? And write that story and write it the way you want it to be written. So yeah, if there was one thing that I could leave people with, it's just start with one decision. I don't care what it is. Leave that person, leave that job, open an Indeed profile and get your resume. I don't care what the thing is, right? Google healthier recipes if that's the thing. Like just one step, make one decision towards that life that you want, and then from there, you'll start compounding, and it'll happen faster than you think.
Your destiny is formed the moment you make a decision. The moment you make a choice, your destiny, your future is formed. That is the immense amount of power that Kitch just described. Okay, Kitch, we're out of time. That was amazing. Again, we know that we could go multiple hours, and we're not kidding, y'all, because we've done that in the past. So can you tell our audience if they want to find you, where can they look you up?
Yeah, easiest place is social media. I'm on every platform. Instagram and LinkedIn are my two big ones. Little inside scoop for your listeners. If they want to get straight to me and skip the team, I run my own Instagram and LinkedIn messaging. So anything that you see on there, anytime that you want to get in touch with me, that is actually me. That is not my team. It's not AI. That is me authentically. So I'm at Coach D Kitch on all of those platforms. Always here to serve, always here to help. And then we're obviously, on the web as well, edgeleadershipacademy.com. And similar to you, we have the Built Not Born podcast, which if you scroll, there's a pretty good episode with a guest named Rebecca Fitzsimmons in there that's worth checking out. So that's available anywhere that you get podcasts as well.
Wonderful. Kitch, it has been my honor and privilege to have you on our show today. Thank you so very much for your time. And y'all, I hope you took some notes. Re-listen to this if you need to, because this is a leader of leaders. He is full of wisdom. He has nothing but my respect. And this is an absolute gem. So Kitch, with my gratitude, thank you so very much.
Thank you. Enjoy the holiday, Fitz.
You too.